Let's move on now to the Indianapolis Colts and what we believe they will do with their first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. But before we get into that, Ryan and I, we have a special announcement. We will be coming at you live on April 27th for the 2023 NFL Draft. So be sure to tune in, leave a comment, see our reactions as picks come in by hitting that subscribe button and also ringing the bell to get notified when we do go live. Also, you will be able to see when we create new content by hitting that bell. So be sure to leave a comment also on this video on what you think the Indianapolis Colts should do with their first pick. And Ryan, with that being said, the Colts are in a very interesting spot. It's funny looking back now. Our most popular video now on YouTube, I think with like 13,000 views, was the Colts and Bears need to make this trade because at the time that made the most sense. And I think a lot of people agreed with us because a lot of draft capital had to come out. But props to the Panthers. They got creative. They threw in DJ Moore. And actually, I think that's a great fit for both teams involved. So that really threw a wrench into everything. And now the Colts are really kind of hoping that no one really wants to trade with the Cardinals, or the Cardinals fall in love with an edge rusher, an offensive lineman, or whatever. Somebody. That way, then they can still get a pick of a litter between Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. But let's say there is a trade back. Let's start here because I think we can agree if Cardinals do pick at 3, Colts will take a quarterback. And I think we can get to that debate here in a second. But if the Raiders trade up or the Titans trade up with the Cardinals and they want to take a quarterback, what do the Colts do at 4? Do they take the 4th best quarterback or do they go a different route?
So I think it depends, right? So reports are that the Colts are really high on Will Levis. I personally am not a huge fan. I think you just look at his last season, and granted, there were a lot of other issues with the Kentucky program, but I just not sold. I think taking him at 4 is too big of a risk. I would rather trade back and then take him elsewhere. I think if somebody trades up, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson go 1, 2, 3, I think that it's a crapshoot on what they end up doing. In my mock, that is what happened that we just posted yesterday, so go check that out. And then I had them taking left tackle Paris Johnson because I think he's an underrated player. He has elite traits, and the Colts really need a left tackle. So I could see them doing that. I could also see them trading back with I don't think the Titans would come up, but maybe if the Falcons really like somebody, they could trade up and get a Will Anderson or a Tyree Wilson and jump the Seahawks. Or maybe the Bears, now that they have a surplus in draft capital, maybe they could move up to 4, give up maybe a 2nd and a 4th along with that 9th pick and get Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, or Tyree Wilson also. So I think there's a lot of different ways that they could go. I don't think that Arizona is going to trade that pick, though. I just don't feel like there's going to be a lot of suitors that are going to be willing to give up the draft capital that it would take. Another option that I think could be possible, the Indianapolis Colts call up the Arizona Cardinals and they're like, hey, we don't want you to give this pick to anybody else. So we will give you 4 and then like a 4th. And we'll just trade spots just to make sure that we get our guy. And then like whatever happens happens there with that. So they'll get their guy. They'll make sure that they don't get left with the leftovers of the top tier quarterbacks. And then so I think that's another possibility as well.
That is a possibility. That's very possible. And I don't dislike that move as well because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you can look up while I kind of go through my take, is confirm how many draft picks they have because I think they have a decent bit of draft picks. They have a couple late rounders that they could spare just to move up the one spot. But I am honestly of the opinion that I think that they will go quarterback no matter who. I know it has never been 4 quarterbacks in a row. And I think it's a little bit different than a few years ago with that Trevor Lawrence draft class, where I think there was a big difference between Trevor Lawrence and then Mac Jones, who was in the 5th quarterback that was taken. And there's also, at the same time, a lot of top tier talent as well from in between them. Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell, all the receivers that were taken at that class. So other teams could find needs on top of that. With this class, though, it's not as dominant of a class, both at the quarterback position depth-wise, and then also just really in every other position as well. It's like blue chip prospects. I mean, Jalen Carter was considered up there. I would say talent-wise is still up there. But there's obviously now question marks now. Will Anderson, I would include in there. Tyree Wilson is creeping his way up. There's a lot of other good prospects, but they all have their question marks. If you're looking at a team like the Colts, who have had a different quarterback every single year since I believe it was 2018 and Andrew Luck's last year, if I'm not mistaken, they're like, we don't want to have to do this anymore. We want to solidify this position so then we can just focus on everything else, and we'll give him time to develop, especially also too in a division that's not very strong. I think Jacksonville's the best team, but there's still flaws on them, and they could still potentially make the playoffs if they find lightning in a bottle,
Yeah.
So I think you get your young franchise quarterback. I understand some of the concerns around Will Levis. My only thing, I know everybody's different, every player is different. What they're saying about Will Levis is the same thing that they said about Josh Allen. Huge arm, likes to run over people, quick, inconsistent, needs to work on accuracy. And maybe Will Levis won't pan out like how Josh Allen is. But at the same time, maybe he will. And you give him in a Shane Steichen offense, I think they could be successful.
So my one thing with the Josh Allen comparison, I think they are similar, but there's a couple things. One, Josh Allen is an outlier in that scenario, right? Everybody looks at that and like, oh, this is what it could be. But for every Josh Allen, there's I can't even think of a.
Exactly. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, like I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but like for every Josh Allen, there's 4 failed quarterbacks that are.
Well, but that happens all the time.
For every Josh Allen, there's a Josh Rosen. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's my take. Also, one of the things that you watched with Josh Allen when he was at Wyoming was, there were inconsistencies, and yes, he was a loose cannon, but there were payoffs, right, for that sometimes. And he would just sometimes make this unbelievable throw and unbelievable play. And I just didn't see that from Will Levis, right? Like, there just wasn't that, I don't know. It just wasn't, it wasn't put together well on tape. And like with Josh Allen, you could see the potential, and I just don't see it with Will Levis. And
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I think if you look at this tape from last year when Wan'Dale Robinson was on that team and they had a connection as well, and you saw a lot of good highlights. This year, he did not have the talent, and yet, however, he was going up against SEC-level defenses while Josh Allen was not during his Wyoming time. So their maybe receiver to cornerback secondary talent level might have been more comparable. However, if you have a weak receiving core in the SEC, it's going to be tough to throw the ball as well. So, and I guess I'm just defending why they would maybe take Will Levis, but it's like if Anthony Richardson is there at 4, do you think they're running up to the podium to take Anthony Richardson?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think
so. What's the difference between Anthony, besides the freak potential capabilities? What's the difference between Richardson and Levis when you look at their on the field performance right now?
So Levis, Richardson, he was a freak athlete at the combine. He was a freak athlete on tape as well. You also saw better mechanics out of Richardson's throwing motion. And then you also saw the payoff on big plays, right? There were some inconsistencies, but he did show that he has the ability to sometimes hit those big plays. Whereas Will Levis, I just didn't really see that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would be willing to do this, but the Colts have 9 draft picks, right? They have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 5s, I think 2 6s and a 7.
Yeah.
And I would be more than willing if they get word that, let's say, Atlanta, Tennessee are calling the Arizona Cardinals to trade up for Anthony Richardson. I'd be like, I would call the Cardinals. hey, we'll give you our first and third pick, move up a spot, and then you get the guy that you want, right? And to me, I think that's Richardson. Shane Steichen came from, or he basically ran the Philadelphia offense under Nick Sirianni. And I think you look at Richardson and what they want to do. I think like he can do what Will Levis does so much better.
Yeah.
So
I'm not disagreeing that I like Richardson more as a prospect. However, I'm just saying I think the gap isn't as big as I think that it is. He's a freak athlete. I give you that. But well, shoot, I also think I said that as well. But if you look at just what their tape and their performances on is, Richardson just had 1 year of success. Well, Levis has multiple starting years in the SEC, and his last year significantly less talent. I also think too can confirm need to double check me on this. Well, but I also think he was banged up as well. In this past year, not excuses. I think the gap between the two maybe might not be as big, only just because what Richardson can do physically is a freak of nature. But then there are still those inconsistencies that both of those players have that both will need to grow out of and learn. Know how to be more accurate with the ball, how to have better footwork, better decision making. So they both have to kind of do those things. I agree with you that Richardson's tape is better, but I think that if someone would trade up, they would want to take Richardson. I don't think it's as big a drop off to Levis. And that's just my argument.
Yeah, I mean, so I still think Levis is a top 15 pick because he does have 1 good year of solid SEC production, and he has a lot of nice physical traits. If you're going to spend a top 5 pick on a quarterback, you're going to want him to be at least competing for a starting role day one. And I don't think Will Levis is close to competing for an NFL job. His footwork's really sloppy. He needs to revamp his throwing mechanics. And so with that all being said, the Indianapolis Colts apparently love Will Levis. They sent the entire organization to his pro day. And if they're really comfortable sitting at 4 and taking Will Levis, more power to him. I think they have a first-round quarterback, and he's very much a project. But you have your quarterback for the next 5 years, and then you, like you said, you can continue to build the rest of your team around him, and then see what you have. So I've been a proponent on this channel. If you have a guy that you like, try to do everything you can to take him.
Yeah.
And if the Colts really like Will Levis and Shane Steichen thinks he'd be a really good fit, then go for it. And if it works out, I'll eat my words.
Yeah. No. It's that's what's fun though about this process is that debate. And so then we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, it's very possible we were both completely wrong and Richardson and Levis are bust and are out of the league 4 years.
Statistically, that's probably most likely.
That is probably very likely. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what the third and fourth quarterbacks taken in the draft. I wonder what their success rate is in the NFL.
Pretty low.
It can't be high.
So first round quarterbacks in general, I think 70% of them don't sign a second contract with the team they get drafted by.
That sounds about right.
So maybe it's 60%, but still, it's not a good percentage. But in today's NFL, you really need that quarterback to come in and be an elite weapon, and so teams are willing to pay a high price for it for the potential that a guy could at some point be that guy. So yeah, but all in all, I'm excited to see what the Colts do here at 4. I think it's going to be a really interesting draft. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see the Colts do here at 4. Do you want them to stay put, take Will Levis? Do you want them to try to move up to 3 to get Anthony Richardson if there's a trade possible? Do you want them to trade back and completely avoid the quarterback market as a whole? Let us know down in the comments. But before you leave, go ahead, smash that subscribe button and hit that bell so you get notified when Tyler and I create new content. Other than that, we will see you guys next time.